Hello, so today is going to be a fun video where I'm going to be taking What the Forge. What the Forge is a prismatic augment that basically allows you to get a bunch of ORNN artifacts, and this is going to be specifically a Honeymancy ZIGGS Blitzcrank reroll. I know this line just got nerfed. I believe this video was from right before it got nerfed. I think this was a warm-up game I played before streaming, and I think the patch just wasn't live. It was just like it got patched right after this game, so that's my bad. I was trying to try it out to see if it was still good. I've tried out ZIGGS already in the new patch. I still think this line is viable, so I don't feel bad about showing it because I think that it's still something that is relevant in the meta. I think ZIGGS Blitzcrank Honeymancy reroll, even though it got a little bit of a nerf, is still very strong. And something that's really important is how strong it is with ORNN artifacts. ORNN artifacts is one of the best things you can get with this comp. Right, if we go on a little bit of a stat dive, right, obviously the stats are very fresh, so maybe I'll like, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt right now. But these are the same as like the last patch. I'll show that it still kind of holds true. If you look at the, if you take ZIGGS and you put like a ZIGGS 3, for example, just to try and indicate that we're rerolling ZIGGS, you'll see things like Living Forge is really good. Spellcaster's Toolbox, where it gives a Mana Zane, and a Zonya's is really good because Mana Zane's really good on ZIGGS. And What the Forge, this is one of the sleeper ones, is also very good. Obviously, these are very small sample size. We can go to the previous patches and you'll see that there's a lot more examples, and they're still very, very good. ORNN artifacts are some of the best things that you can hit with the ZIGGS line because of how many of the artifacts are usable by all of the units. That's why some of the things like What the Forge, if you read it, completed items you own are transformed to random artifacts. Because even though they're random artifacts, there's so many that are able to be used with like the Honeymancy reroll line that they're still very viable to pick. If you go on augments in general, you'll see that What the Forge is very strong, even on this patch. Obviously less sample size, but you'll see that it still averages above a 4.5, which means it's pretty strong, right? Obviously there's other things that are a little bit better, for sure. If you look at other prismatic augments, right now we're in prismatic party. Stuff like Support Golem still really strong. At What Cost is really strong, but it's right up there in one of the best augments you can hit. You might think to yourself, why is it so strong? The reason it's so strong, oh sorry, this is Living Forge. What the Forge a little bit worse. Because Living Forge you get to pick every item. What the Forge is all random, but the main difference, before What the Forge was pretty bad, it was very RNG. There's one thing about this that makes it really strong right now, and that is the last sentence. This got added in I think last patch, like last major patch, so like not this patch, the previous patch. What the Forge became really strong because there is a gain 1 artifact. You see that last sentence? So basically all your items are turned into ORNN artifacts. Champions gain 110 health. That's really strong. It's like a compensation. You get a bunch of ORNN artifacts which are supposed to be strong, but then you gain a bunch of health. It's really good, but the problem is you lose the ability to make anti-heal and shred in a lot of cases, so then like you have to kind of balance it and have a comp that kind of can adjust for that. But it was kind of RNG based on what items you hit, because it's often very hard to play around ORNN artifacts these days. But the gain 1 artifact is the key part. Gain 1 artifact ensures that you will be able to, after seeing all the random artifacts, pick one in order to make some sort of combination that is good on at least 1 unit. So it's very hard to miss now with What the Forge, even in a general sense, even in like when you're playing any board, right? Not specifically Honeymancy, but other boards as well. It's really easy to make a certain item combo. For example, I'll just explain it in terms of like the ORNN artifacts. So it's my second time recording this, so I'm trying to speak fast. I'm trying to make up for lost time. ORNN artifacts are really strong, but the problem is some of them do nothing to your board, and that's what the problem with What the Forge is a lot of the time. Something like Unending Despair, for example, if the shield breaks, you do a bunch of damage. As you can see, the average is very high. What happens if you don't have a unit that has a shield? It's kind of fucking useless, right? It just gives like health. It's like a shitty Warmogs, right? It's not that good of an item. The same as something like Horizon Focus. You'll see it averages really well, but then you read it and it's like, stunning an enemy causes lightning to strike. What if you don't stun an enemy? Right? That's what I mean. Sometimes you can really miss, especially when they're random. But the thing is, now you get to pick at least 1 ORNN artifact. So let's say you hit a Horizon Focus, you hit Unending Despair. Then you could pick another item that can complement that, and then you'll be able to make like a kind of like an Exodia board. So a lot of times it's very reliable, because being able to pick also allows for certain combinations of items. For example, there's things that combo really well, like snipers with fishbones, right? Fishbones doubles the range and targets random enemy, and then snipers does extra damage for further range. So if you have things that both increase the range, even something like rapid fire cannon, when you combine a bunch of things that increase range, all of a sudden you can do a shit ton of damage instantly, right? There's combinations of Ornn artifacts that work out really, really well with each other. Something else that really enables this, enables combination is something like Suspicious Trenchcoat. A Suspicious Trenchcoat makes you split when you drop below a certain amount of health. When you split into 3 copies of yourself, it resets a lot of those 1 per battle situations. So for example, Zhonya's with a trenchcoat will reset the Zhonya's. So you run into like these Exodia situations that can sometimes work, and that's why it's really, really strong even outside of something like a Honeymancy reroll. Honeymancy reroll looks something like this, by the way. I know it's a lot of information at the start. I just thought I'd do it all at once because instead of like flipping back and forth. Something like Honeymancy reroll, it works out really well because you can make great use of all the Ornn artifacts, right? Stuff that gives you a shield is good because Blitzcrank gets a shield, right? Blitzcrank's ability is that he gains a shield. So things like Forbidden Idol, Unending Despair, they work really well on Blitzcrank, and then all the ones that are more generic, like Anima Visage or Eternal Winter, you can still play them on the Blitzcrank, so your tank can take all of the Ornn artifacts that are tank items. If you need to play Horizon Focus, a lot of times you're capping out your board around Arcana with the Ari and the Tahm Kench to give you a bunch more AP that can translate to the Ziggs. So something like Horizon Focus, you can put on a Tahm Kench. And then stuff like AD items, a lot of times you can put them on Poppy that you're rerolling for typically with this line. Or you can put them on Kog'Maw and then just play a 5 Honeymancy variation. Because if you run into something like Sniper's Focus and all of these type of things, you might want to just play them on Kog'Maw. But typically with Ziggs, you really want Mana Zane. That's like the big one. And then the other AP items are also pretty good. Lynchbane also works really well. As well as Luden's Tempest. It's not that strong because you have to get the overkill, but even the AP items that are a little bit like worse, something like Luden's Tempest works really well because Ziggs has high burst damage. So the Luden's Tempest procs a lot of the time. So basically all the items are usable except for maybe something like Spectral Cutlass, like really weird ones like the ones that change positioning. So it works out really nicely. So that's why it's a really good combination. So here I kind of just skipped over stage 2 because I want to talk about Ornn artifacts. Now, I'm tempo slamming a little bit. I'm trying to save as much HP as possible because I had a lot of upgrades early on in the round. I lost the first 2 rounds, but I feel really stable. As you can see, I have a bunch of Blitzcranks that have a good amount of Ziggs. So I'm kind of committing towards this ZIGGS reroll. I took Prismatic Ticket, by the way. So I am a little bit poor because of how hard I hit on some of my units. I started with Prismatic Ticket because I started out I started this game out, with 3 Ziggs before I picked my first augment. It's Prismatic Party, so I know that there's going to be triple Prismatics, so I'm not too concerned about later itemizations because the chances are I will be able to hit some sort of Ornn item or some sort of Masterworks upgrade or like something that can work with my board pretty reliably. So I feel like I'll be able to itemize better later. All that really matters for me is hitting early. So I took Prismatic Ticket because there's a lot that I'm rolling for. I'm rolling for Cassio 3, I'm rolling for ZIGGS 3, I'm rolling for Poppy 3, I'm rolling for Blitz 3. Basically everything that's on the board. And then if I hit some Nunus, I will probably roll for Nunu 3 as well. So I get a lot of value off of Prismatic Ticket. So I'm totally down for that. Right now I'm just going to econ up a little bit and then I'm going to worry about making my items. Right now, like I said before, I tempo slammed a little bit because I didn't want to super greed. I started the game off with a glove and a belt. When you have lobbies that are like prismatic lobbies, for example, same with like loot sub and things like that, sometimes the boards, they get out of hand really fast. So it makes sense to slam items earlier rather than later just to make sure that you have some level of HP to play around with in case people start to high roll in some absurd manner that you kind of like run into a problem later. Here though, this is the big problem I have with this comp, is if you hit too hard too early, sometimes your bench gets really fucking cluttered. Because if you're trying to go for Poppy 3, Blitzcrank 3, and ZIGGS 3, you kind of have to high roll on one of them or else you run out of space on your comp. So here I'm going to slam probably, like I want to make a mana item for ZIGGS, but I think I'm just going to tempo. I made Anti-Heal and Shred because at this point I'm thinking to myself, I just want to win a couple rounds. I know that like, you know, blue buff is really, really important on ZIGGS, but my thought process was I might as well make full utility and worry about that later. I'm probably going to lose a couple rounds this stage and I'm already pretty low HP, so I do have Carousel priority ideally here, so I'm going to work around that. But anyways, like I was saying, Prismatic, Honeymancy Crown is sometimes good, but I think it's a little bit of bait. I'm not gonna lie. Honeymancy Crown a lot of times it's better when you can hit 7 Honeymancy. But then I hit What the Forge. So I'm pretty sure it's just always take What the Forge here. And I'm really hoping to hit items that I can put on the ZIGGS right away. If I can't hit them on the ZIGGS, it's not that good. Other thing that I have is I have a Reforger. So if I hit some crazy, like, really bad stuff, then I can easily reforge them using the Reforger. So as you can see here, I got a Gold Collector and a Prowler's Claw. Gold Collector isn't that bad if I want to play towards Kog'Maw. But in this case, I'm just like, I might as well just reforge both of them. I got Fishbone's Rapid Fire Cannon. So I'm like, I could put Rapid Fire Cannon on Cassio. That's pretty good. It gives her a bunch of attack speed. Here I'm probably taking Luden's Tempest. Now, like I said before, I don't think Luden's Tempest is the best item on ZIGGS. Oh, actually, maybe I take Anima. It's hard to say. Yeah, I just take Anima here. I don't like Luden's Tempest that much, and I would rather have a frontline item. Anima Visage is really, really strong on Blitzcrank, just because it's like it's like a better D-Claw, right? It just gives you a bunch of passive healing. So I just want to split up my items in a way that's kind of useful. Now, I think the biggest thing that I don't know, I played this early game a little bit greedy, because I don't think Cassio is doing that much damage. Obviously, Fishbones isn't the best item for me here. If I have another Reforger, I might reforge the Fishbones as well. But Fishbones isn't that bad. It gives a bunch of attack speed. So I'm putting on the Cassio because I think a Cassio likes attack speed more than the ZIGGS. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I think Rapid Fire Cannon maybe will help the ZIGGS. The thing is, it just doesn't seem like it's a lot of value. I think it's more value on Cassio, which is why I put it on Cassiopeia. And as you can see, I'm rolling a little bit here. I'm basically using some of my free rerolls to try and hit some units to clear up my bench. Now my bench is in a good spot. You know, I'm just rolling to use some of my prismatic ticket rerolls. Rolling till around 30. Just because I want to be stable. I'm pretty low HP here. And because of What the Forge is good if you have a lot of items. Like, in the current board state, my items aren't that great. Right? I have one item on Blitzcrank, one item on ZIGGS, 2 items on Cassio, and one of the items isn't even that good, right? Fishbones, you can argue, is not that great of an item here. I run into a situation where I could easily lose some of these rounds. I'm one off of Blitzcrank and I'm one off of ZIGGS now. I'm probably just going to roll until I hit them because I'd rather stabilize around being strong currently, because the longer the game goes on, the more ORNN artifacts I get, and the closer I get to hitting some sort of Exodia situation where I have combinations of ORNN artifacts that are going to absolutely destroy everybody. For example, if I hit Unending Despair or I hit Forbidden Idol on Blitzcrank, this Blitzcrank is going to be like the main carry. The Blitzcrank is going to kill everybody, right? It's going to be so much damage and so much passive healing and so much like HP gain. Like Forbidden Idol on Blitzcrank or Unending Despair on Blitzcrank, or even another like frontline item like Eternal Winter. Things like this will make it so that I can try and play for a win out instead of just playing for like a top 4, right? I can play for like a first in some situations. We hit the Blitzcrank 3, which is great. Here I can make another ORNN artifact. Whenever you make them, they pop off, so it's all fine. If it's frontline item, it goes on the front line. Suspicious Trenchcoat, perfect. We'll just put on Blitzcrank. Now we have 3 Blitzcranks at one point. Good enough for me. And that's kind of how it works, right? If I hit something that was backline, I put on my backline. If I hit something AD, then it becomes a little bit weird. I'm not really committing towards rolling for Kog'Maw here. I'm rolling a bit deep here. I'm using my free rerolls until 30 to try and find the ZIGGS 3. Like I said, I'm trying to stabilize. I want to make sure that my board is strong enough to win out in this stage. I don't want to necessarily lose rounds right now because I want to win, like, you know, as many in a row so that I can rebuild my streak and then rebuild my econ. Basically, when you level, you're just going to be leveling for Arcana. So it's not that big of a deal. I already have the Tahm Kench. I have actually 2 Tahm Kenches, by the way. So I feel really stable. Like, what I mean by that is, like, sometimes, like, let's say you're rolling and you don't hit Tahm Kench. You might want to save more econ because you're going to need it to level and then roll on a higher odds to get Tahm Kench, right? You might have to roll a lot of gold on level 8 because you really want to cap out around this Tahm Kench later. For me, I'm not worried about that because I already have 2 copies of Tahm Kench. Right now, as you can see, I'm not very close to Cassio. I'm not very close to Nunu. I have the option to just push levels and play Arcana. I can just go straight to level 8. Even if I'm level 8 with 0 gold, I will have a Tahm Kench already, so I hit the unit that I need. So as you can see here, I just level, right? Econ doesn't matter to me that much. I'm Prismatic Ticket anyways, so even if I have to roll for this Cassio, ideally, like, you know, 50% of your shops are turning into free rerolls, so you could treat it as I have a lot of gold. What really matters is HP and living long enough to get enough ORNN artifacts to make my game, like, crazy and, like, in a winning spot. But that's what I mean, right? Like, I don't necessarily have to go for Cassio 3. A lot of times in this setup, if you don't hit Cassio 3, it's a little bit lower cap, but you can always fall back on just playing 5 Honeymancy, or even playing a Karma 2, right? If you can just switch the Cassio to a Karma late game, that's also okay. We'll see how it goes, though. Right now, I'm level 6. I might use some rerolls on level 6. I'll probably use my free rerolls on level 6 until I have enough econ to reliably make it to 7, and then to level 8. I'm a little bit behind levels. That's how it usually happens with this comp. You're spending a lot of gold to try and find all the 1 cost and 2 cost units, but it's super stable once you hit everybody. Right? If I hit Poppy 3, Nunu 3, Cassio 3, it's basically like 0% chance you go bot 4. It's very, very unlikely. The game just dropped me a bunch of Nunus. We'll take that. That's great for us. And a bunch of gold, so that's a huge like cash injection for everybody in the lobby. We make our next Ornn artifact, and we get Lichbane. So Lichbane, AP item, we put on Ziggs, good enough, good to go, right? I think here though, this is what I was saying before, I don't know if it's a mistake. Now, rapid fire, what's it called? Fishbones feels really awkward because I like playing around Ziggs in order to position him such that, like, you know, you're targeting the enemy carry. That's like a really good asset that Ziggs has, is that you can actually actively target a unit with the with his cast, because he attacks the furthest unit, right? So I don't want to give him Fishbones because I feel like you lose out on that ability. And then rapid fire cannon, I think just does more on Cassio. Like, I think Cassio just, like, I just, like, as much as it's like 3 items on Ziggs is 3 items on Ziggs, I'd rather just keep the items as is and save my removers in case I hit some combination later that I like more. But anyways, we're decently strong now. We have Ziggs 3. We could just level to 7 if we find an Ari. I wasn't really holding on to Aries until, I wasn't really holding onto Aries up until now, just because I don't have the bench space for it. The bench gets really, really cluttered really, really fast. But I can also level to 7 just for the Hecarim. Okay, so here's the thing. This is the part that's a little bit weird. So Spellcasters is good here. Spellcasters is really good here. It's actually a very, very strong augment to take. Final Ascension, I think, is bad on Blitzcrank in particular. Now, what I'm thinking in my head is that I don't know when I will get the next Ziggs item, and I don't necessarily want Spellcaster's Toolbox because I don't want another Mana Zane, right? I don't think I need a second Mana Zane. So what I was thinking is I can get a Ziggs item here for free. So I should have probably taken Glamorous Gauntlet. I think this is a huge mistake in hindsight. I think my eyes just lit up at the fact that I was like, ooh, Radiant TG to itemize my Nunu 3. Like, I think I just thought about that. I didn't think hard enough. I think my original idea was that I want to guarantee a third Ziggs item because I think that Ziggs does the most damage on my board, and having a third item on him, if it's a Radiant item, is good enough to, you know, good enough for Jazz, just make it work, right? I think I got baited by the Radiant TG because Radiant TG is very good. And I'm gonna go for, at this point, because I have Radiant TG, I'm gonna go for Nunu 3. If I hit the Nunu 3 with Radiant TG, it is very strong, don't get me wrong, because it's just a lot of stats on a 3-star unit that takes advantage of most of the stuff that we have in on the board. So I think it's really good. I think the problem is that I might now sit the whole game without a Ziggs item, because, you know, obviously I'm relying on the randomness of what the Forge to give me my third Ziggs item. When I could have guaranteed a Radiant item. The Radiant items don't change, because they're not craftable items, they don't change because of what the Forge. So not having the Ziggs item is a little bit scary. That's why typically when you're playing something like this in a prismatic lobby or prismatic party, something like that, you really, really, really want to, how do I phrase it? You really want to pick item augments like Radiant or, how do I phrase it? Like, getting a Radiant item is really good because it guarantees you another item slot without the randomness of what the Forge. And stuff like Spellcaster's Toolbox, where you get a Zhonya's and a Mana Zane. I could have probably used the Mana Zane on somebody else and just Zhonya's the Ziggs. So I think this was the worst option out of all of them. But in my head, I just thought to myself, it can't be bad to have a Radiant TG on Nunu 3. Because it's a whole ass unit that's going to get itemized, right? Nunu with no items, useless. Nunu with double Radiant item is pretty fucking strong. So, you know, I'm not entirely sure how big of a mistake it is. I think if I redid this game, like, upon second look, like, it's really enticing to take Radiant Jewel Gauntlet, because I think it would matter a lot more in some of the late game fights, especially with, like, the current setup that I have. But of course, it is what it is. That's just the game. I did what I did. The choices I made, you know, I think there's plausible explanation for both choices. That's what I would like to say. I think that you can reasonably say that Radiant TG on a Nunu 3 is really strong, and Jewel Gauntlet on the Ziggs is also very strong. But now I'm just rolling. I'm one off Nunu. I already hit Casio 3, by the way, while I was rolling for this Nunu. I just really want to hit this Nunu, so we're just going to use our rolls. Gain a Frying Pan isn't that great. It would have been nice if I could get a Honeymancy +1, but it's fine. And this is the thing that got removed, by the way. There's no more gain a Frying Pan and gain a Spatula. There's just the gain the random emblem. So this is where I noticed that, oh, this isn't the new patch, right? That's where it clicked. I was like, wait a second. I guess it didn't patch yet, because my game updated when I opened the game. So I thought this was on the new patch. And then when that happened while I was playing, I was like, wait a second. That's not supposed to be there. And I was like, wait a second. This isn't the new patch. Yeah, like in this fight especially, wouldn't a Radiant Jewel Gauntlet probably could have won this fight, especially without the Nunu 3. I'm slow rolling 50, right? I want to make it to level 8. Level 8 I can fit in Arcana and I'll spike really hard, but I just want to roll on 6 to find this last Nunu so that I can move on with my life. Because now I have the Radiant TG. If I didn't have Radiant TG on Nunu, I wouldn't care about hitting Nunu 3. But now it's going to be an absolute demon, right? We have full item Nunu, 2 item Casio, 2 item Ziggs, 2 item Blitzcrank. When we hit the next item threshold, right, we're going to hit the birds coming up in one turn. We're going to get at least 1 or 2 more Ornn artifacts. So we're going to be in a good spot to cap out our board even higher. Level to 7, put in Arcana. It cost me 1 gold, right? I know it's not perfect interval, but I'm planning to go level 8, and then you usually just stack Arcana, right? You'll either play a, what's his name? You'll usually either play some sort of, you'll either play a Xerath or a Hecarim. Now, typically, you're always, because you have so many 3 stars, by the way, you're almost always using the Ahri in this case. Just stacking AP on Casio and Ziggs does a whole lot, because Casio will scale her auto attacks to have a bunch of AP, and Ziggs basically is you're trying to one-shot and do a bunch of AoE to backline units, so the extra AP matters a lot in these situations, at least. Well, this is nice. This is fun. Isn't this fun? We get Tahm Kench 2 as well. That's great. If we get a Forbidden, sorry, not Forbidden. If we get, what's the name of the item? If we get Horizon Focus, we can put on Tahm Kench. Here I removed the fish bones, right? I'm using one of my removers. You should always get in the habit of using your remover on neutral rounds, because even if you have one remover, you will get a new one as part of the item drops when you kill the neutral units. So before you actually start the fight, you should always use your remover, because if there's anybody that you could optimize a little bit better, it's part of this. It's part of TFT. Like that's just a mechanic you have to know how to do. I don't need to remover the rod off of the Ziggs, by the way, because when it becomes an Ornn artifact, it pops off anyways. So as you can see, boom, it pops off. And what do we hit? Unending Despair. Nice. We got one of the Exodia ones on our board. That spikes our board by so much, by the way, because now we have a Blitzcrank that splits into 3 with Unending Despair that does damage off the shield breaks. That is nuts. That is so strong for us. So I'm really, really happy to see that. And that's just the thing, right? There's so many that you can hit that are really, really strong. We still don't have 3 items on Casio or Ziggs, but we should be very, very strong. We have Radiant TG Nunu 3. We have triple really strong items on Blitzcrank. And then we have decent items on both the Casio and the Ziggs. Right, the Casio has a good amount of attack speed. She's spreading a lot of damage to the whole board. It also allows Ziggs to maybe one-shot, because if the Casio hits a backline unit, we run into a good spot. Here's a little bit awkward. Yeah, this one's a little bit awkward of a fight. Basically, my Ziggs got caught out in the middle of the fight again. This is Fairy before Fairy was nerfed, so it's even stronger than it is now, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. I do expect to win a lot of these fights late game. If I can get it, 2 Arcana is pretty weak. 3 Arcana isn't that great, but especially when you have like AP, like this Ahri, for example, that's giving me a bunch of AP. Stacking Arcana actually does a huge amount. Right? The auto attacks that Casio does, like stacking those is kind of massive. I could put in Diana, I think would probably be better. You can also level, and sometimes I don't know if it makes sense to play like 2 Arcana and then play some other units, for example. I should always be playing Diana, by the way. I don't know if it makes sense to play other units. This is another What the Forge player, by the way, and you can see that they're doing quite well. I guess they're not doing that well because they're playing multi-striker. Multi-striker is kind of not that flexible, in my opinion. I think that there's better comps you can play. A good example of a What the Forge comp that's really, really strong is Warriors, right? Warriors uses What the Forge really, really well because you have AP units like Gwen and Katarina, and then you have AD units like Fiora and Nyla and Akali, so all of them can make use of all the different types of Ornn artifacts. And then a lot of times you're playing Rakan or Preservers or Morgana as your max cap, and all of those units have shielding, like Morgana and Rakan specifically, so they can make use of shielding items. And then like all the other items in between, like general tank items and all of that stuff, they can just fit on everybody, which is great. I do expect, like, I'm still in a really good spot to top 4. I just don't know if I'm going first. I rolled a little bit deep. This is where not having 3-item Ziggs really matters, right? This is what I was saying before, right? I don't know if it's better to have full itemized Nunu 3 because my Blitzcrank is kind of my main tank, but this Nunu is doing a lot for my board, right? This Nunu is basically a secondary tank with this double Radiant item. Like, you'll see on the damage report, Nunu is doing as much damage as Cassio and Ziggs, like roughly in this fight, right? So that's the glory of the TG, right? When you have a 3-star unit and you put a Thieves Gloves on them, it ups them by so much. If I didn't have items on this Nunu, he really wouldn't be doing anything. It's just I don't know how much better it would be to put items on somebody else. Now here's a part. This carousel sucks, by the way, right? This is something I just want to point out. This is not a good carousel for me. The reason is that I'm last pick, and watch this. Nobody needs a spat. And you might think to yourself, oh, these spats are all great, whatever. There's a Honeymancy spat. That's surely good. No, the problem is I wanted an item. I want an Ornn artifact because I need to itemize my Ziggs, right? I need as many cracks in an Ornn artifact as possible until I hit an AP item for the Ziggs. Because if I don't, like, you know, so that's a whole ass Ornn artifact that I'm down now. Honeymancy spat doesn't really matter for me, right? 5 Honeymancy might be good. Like, I could put on the Cassio, I guess. But, like, I just put on the front line because I'm like, I don't think it's that important, the damage. Like, maybe it's better on Cassio, TBH, I'm not sure. But Honeymancy, it's like when the unit dies, it transfers a B. So I'd rather have it on the front line to transfer the Bs to the other units. Because this Poppy is basically going to die for free. So I think it's better to put on the Poppy so that she transfers the B onto the other unit. I think if you're 5 Honeymancy, like if you're definitely playing 5 Honeymancy, then you could play towards getting the increased damage on the Cassio. But I think in this case, I'd rather just have the Poppy die first, transfer the item onto somebody else, and then make everything work out for me. Oh yeah, we just cleared this guy. That's great. As you can see, we're still highest HP in the lobby. We spiked really hard in the mid game. That's how this comp kind of works. And then you kind of start to fall off. With all the Ornn artifacts, we're also very, very strong. Typically around this time, like stage 5, you start to fall off really, really hard. But we're still keeping up with our Ornn artifacts. The main thing is Ziggs not having 3 items right now. That is really, really important. We need a 3rd item on Ziggs. The carousel was really bad for us because we really didn't need an extra Honeymancy, right? Even if I level up, I'm probably not going to play 5 Honeymancy. I think that the AP that I get from, the AP that you get from Arcana, I think is more important than the 5 Honeymancy. So I'd rather just do that. So it's a little bit weird. It's hard to say. I'm trying to position my Ziggs in such a way that I have a better chance of, like, getting the backline. Yeah, see, I'm trying to position. This guy has his Callista in the middle, which is a little bit awkward. And has a Fairy +1, which I think he got off the carousel or he reforged it. I don't know how, but whatever, it's fine. I'm putting the Honeymancy units, by the way, just in case I can play 5 Honeymancy now. Because it might be a little bit better than Arcana. It's hard to say. But I killed his backline, right? This is why Ziggs sometimes just wins you the game. Because this guy, like, look, I'm not able to kill the Rakan at all, but getting the Ziggs bomb on the Callista, easy clap. I still don't think I'm playing for first, by the way. There is the other guy that's streaking. He is very far ahead. If you look at his board, he's level 9. Level 9 with a Callista board, Morgana, Diana, just lots of 5 costs. Very good backline access as well with the Diana, so I can easily just lose my damage off the Ziggs. And now I have, like, I just gotta pop this Ornn artifact and hope that it's a Ziggs item, if I'm being real here. If it's not a Ziggs item, I'm pretty sure that I'm just playing for second. If it's a ZIGGS item, maybe I have a chance to play for first. But it's just unlucky. It's just really unlucky right now. So we just gotta pop it, see what it transforms into. And this is where I kind of felt the pinch of like, ooh, fuck, that's not a good item. That's a really bad item that I didn't want to see here. It's basically Corrupt Vampire Accepted makes so that your unit doesn't cast anymore. So I just put it on the front line because I'm like, whatever, frontline stats, Omnivamp, maybe the Poppy lives a little bit longer. Oh, here's a big throw, by the way. I'm gonna pause it for a second. So I saw this and I thought to myself, oh, I can play like Diana 2. Surely Diana 2 is better than something. The problem is that Diana 2, I just completely fucked this up so bad. So what I do here is I buy Diana and I buy the duplicator and I'm like, oh, I have a free Diana 2. So I think like, oh, I could put in Diana 2 over this Poppy. But then I'm like, oh, but it's a Poppy 3, right? In my head, what I thought I was going to do is I thought I was going to get 4 Bastion. If you look at the right now, I'm 3 Arcana because I'm level 8. And I'm 3 Bastion, right? I'm 4 Honeymancy, 3 Bastion. So in my head, I was like, oh, I'll be 4 Bastion with this Diana. So that's why I spent all that gold on it. But I actually have to level in order to play 4 Bastion. So I just griefed all my econ because I spent 10 gold plus another 5 on the Diana. I would have been 50 gold. I could have been level 9 this turn, right? If you look at it, I'm 60 away. If I was at 50 gold or 40 gold last turn, I had 10 more gold. I could have sold my bench and be level 9 this turn. But now I have to roll for a fucking charm because I'm not going to be able to make it to level 9 here. So I think I just griefed my game all at once. Now, I don't even know if Diana is better than Poppy because it's a Poppy 3. So then I have to put Poppy in over the Hecarim. I think there's a certain point where you should sell. But like, it's just awkward now. Because I can put in Hecarim and I can switch to Tahm Kench and just get a bunch of HP instead of AP. But I think that's actually weaker. Because the only way I beat this board is if I can snipe the Callista. So I need the AP to just do a lot of damage to the backline. Because if I don't do the damage to the backline, I feel like I'm just going to get fucked. Right? Like, especially this one. Like, you see, like, the AP matters a lot just to chew through these units. This guy's so far ahead, by the way, that's really hard for me to win anyways. I could also level to play 5 Honeymancy, but I think I just want to level to play 4 Bastion. Which is just a little unfortunate. But here, it's probably just lose the Ahri and just play around 4 Bastion. The problem is it's last fight, I think. So it's like, do I want to play Diana 2? Or do I want to level for 5 Honeymancy with this Kog'Maw? So this is what I mean by grief my game. I'm not sure what the right decision is here. I'm pretty sure that that guy's going to wipe me clean of all of my health. So I just level for 5 Honeymancy. I'm like, fuck it, just a little bit more damage. Let's see what happens. That guy's board is just so fucking strong. He has so many 5 costs upgraded, and there's so much backline access. And without the ZIGGS third item, I don't think I ever have a chance of beating him. But he has Morgana 2, he has Callista 2, he has Camille 2, he has Rakan. He's playing the 5 Fairy before it got nerfed, so the Rakan is giga broken. Right, it's not even broken by like today's standards where it's still playable and you still go top 1. It's like actually fucking broken. Like look how easy that was to die. Like I just fucking died instantly, right? I wish I didn't make the Diana. The champ duplicator was super bait. I could have made it to level 9 and then be able to roll for a charm that fight as well. And I think that's what the main mistake was. So I kind of griefed the end of the game. But realistically, I don't think I was going to beat him because he was putting Callista behind the Rakan. So my ZIGGS was really not able to hit the Callista. I think if I position my ZIGGS to the far right or the far left, maybe I can hit the Callista. But the problem is he has so many units that the ZIGGS is just not going to get there in time, right? Like let's say I try and dodge this Rakan by putting my ZIGGS in the corner in one of these fights. The problem is look how many fucking units he has. He's level 9 and there's so many units to chew through. And he has Arcana in, and he has, like, his board is just really, really strong. So it's just a little bit too much for me to deal with here. Because there's just too many, like, really, really, like, things. And then the other problem is, he's pumping up, which is a scaling comp, so it's stage 6. So he already has a bunch of attack speed, so that's why his damage is so high. The other big problem is that he's Final Ascension. So if my ZIGGS doesn't kill this Callista instantly, he Final Ascensions on my ass and I just get wiped out. And that's why those fights weren't very close. It's just a matter of like his augments are a lot better and he has new recruits, so he has like 10 units on the board. It's just a really bad matchup for me. But either way, like I said, I shouldn't have gone for this Diana thing. In my head, I thought I could make it to like 4 Bastion in the middle of this and then like play around that. I think that it was probably better to maybe sell the Poppy. I think Diana too was probably better than the Poppy. The problem is I don't know who to put Vampiric Scepter on, because every single unit I want them to cast, right? Diana without casting is going to be really, really bad. So Vampiric Scepter isn't good on Diana. And the only one that I can think of to put on was Poppy. That's why I was reluctant to sell it. And I don't even think 4 Bastion would have mattered. The Callista would shoot through to everybody anyways. So it is what it is. But anyways, that was a game. Hopefully it was enjoyable. I had a lot of fun playing it. This was actually a game where it kind of felt like a little bit more interesting, even though it was just a general reroll. But, you know, obviously take it with a grain of salt. That this was last patch. You know, make sure that you understand that Ziggs is a little bit weaker. So some of the fights that you see that I just barely win, they might be a barely lose. But the fights that look very convincing one way or the other, it'll still be very strong. So make sure you have a good spot for it. Obviously, this was a prismatic ticket game, prismatic lobby. Things were a little bit more high roll. But of course, if you have a good spot for Ziggs, I still think it's very playable. And don't be afraid to play around Ornn artifacts, especially if you're playing Honeymancy. There's a lot of different options without even having to think very hard about your board, because the units really fall really nicely into them. Like I said, you can also just pivot to playing 5 Honeymancy with a Kog'Maw. And just lose the Encanter, lose the Cassiopeia, if you run into a situation where your items are really, really bad for AP specific units. But in this case, I got dropped a Mana Zane, so I felt really comfortable just playing this variation. It kind of worked out. Thank you for watching, and hopefully have a great day. See you around.